Chapter 151. After refining 2 blood chi pills, Songwon could clearly feel his longevity technique cultivation had grown significantly. He was now very close to reaching the 5th layer of chi refining, feeling elated. Songwon had finally found a method to quickly enhance his cultivation. However, the potency of the pills was still somewhat lacking, and it took 3 days to successfully refine a batch of 2 pills each time, resulting in poor yields. Songwon recalled that the first time he took blood chi pills from Ji-in, the raw material input was increased, yielding 4 pills per batch, with the potency more than doubled. Perhaps I should also try increasing the raw material input. With this thought, Songwon felt excited and immediately went out to purchase spirit herbs to attempt a new formula. Half a month later, Songwon finally succeeded in refining an enhanced version of the blood chi pills, swallowing 1 pill. His cultivation grew rapidly. That night, while refining the medicinal power of the blood chi pill, Songwon suddenly sensed an external presence approaching his small courtyard. However, the presence did not enter Songwon's courtyard but went next door to Sun Da-xiong's house. The presence belonged to someone Songwon had seen before, the genius of the Lei family, Lei Tianyu. Lei Tianyu had concealed his aura well. If it weren't for the vigilant black armored goo outside who happened to spot him, even Songwon, with his spiritual sense comparable to a late-stage foundation establishment cultivator, would not have noticed him. What is the esteemed heir of the Lei family doing sneaking into the Sun residence in the middle of the night? Could it be that Sun Da-xiong has something valuable that Lei Tianyu covets? Curious, Songwon cautiously extended his spiritual sense to observe Lei Tianyu's actions. Lei Tianyu silently landed in Sun Da-xiong's courtyard, confirming that only the leftmost room had someone in it. His face lit up with joy. As expected from the intel, Sun Da-xiong had gone out hunting demonic beasts yesterday and had not returned. Only Sun Ru was at home. Lei Tianyu approached the front of the living room door. He injected a strand of spiritual power into the door seam. Quietly unlocking it from the inside, entering the living room, he headed towards the left room. Just as he was about to repeat his trick to open the room door, he sensed the room was enveloped by an invisible force, a defensive array. Faced with an unexpected situation, Lei Tianyu remained calm. It was just a basic defensive array called the guard armor array, which had both defensive and alert functions if someone tried to force their way in. The barrier would emit a bright red light and a piercing buzzing sound to repel intruders and alert the surrounding people. The beast taming sect, having collected rent, was responsible for the safety of the rogue cultivators. Upon seeing an alert array activated, the enforcement team would quickly arrive. Additionally, neighbors with a sense of justice might also come to help. Lei Tianyu scoffed at such low-level arrays, but for rogue cultivators like Sun Da-xiong, this was already a powerful array. Sun Da-xiong had spent a considerable amount to buy it to protect his daughter while he was away. Lei Tianyu produced a black iron token and carefully placed it against the array barrier after injecting spiritual power into it. Upon contact, the transparent barrier began to melt like ice meeting fire. Pop! A faint sound was heard as the barrier partially dissolved. It suddenly shattered completely. The array broken. Sun Ru, who was meditating inside, was startled awake. Who? Before she could finish her sentence, a dark figure lunged at her. Suddenly, a sharp pain struck the back of Sun Ru's head, causing her to lose consciousness and pass out. Lei Tianyu took out a black cloth bag, put Sun Ru inside, hoisted it over his shoulder, and turned to leave the courtyard. Seeing this, Songwon's mind quickly raced through the information related to the Lei family treasure pavilion, the low-priced thunder palm, the spiritual imprint on the spell jade slip, and the blood aura surrounding Lei Tianyu. Additionally, recently, Sun Ru had been practicing the Thunder Palm spell. Connecting all these pieces of information, a bold hypothesis formed in Songwon's mind. Before Lei Tianyu could leave the courtyard, Songwon quietly placed a spiritual imprint on Sun Ru. He didn't place the imprint on Lei Tianyu, fearing that he might sense it. He then sent a black armored goo to silently follow Lei Tianyu. Lei Tianyu weaved through the marketplace, and under the cover of night, he left the market area. Once outside, Lei Tianyu didn't choose to fly but instead moved through the dense forest to remain unnoticed. Songwon didn't dare to use demonic spiritual power and only relied on his physical abilities to follow through the forest, which wasn't very fast. But Lei Tianyu, carrying a living person and trying to conceal his aura and tracks, wasn't very fast either. With the guidance of the black armored goo and the spiritual imprint, Songwon wasn't worried about losing track and kept a distance of 10 miles behind. After traveling 200 to 300 miles, Lei Tianyu arrived at a large lake that stretched beyond the horizon. He looked around, ensuring no one was nearby, then carried the cloth bag containing Sun Ru and jumped into the lake. The black armored Gu also silently slipped into the water, while Song-won, 7 or 8 miles away, hurried his pace. The lake was very deep at the point where Lei Tianyu submerged, and after diving nearly 10 meters, he still hadn't reached the bottom. He didn't dive further but entered one of the many stone caves on the lake's rocky wall. Inside was a narrow passageway, slanting downward, filled with lake water. Lei Tianyu followed the passage for several hundred meters until he reached a stone wall. The stone wall seemed unremarkable, no different from other underwater rocks. Lei Tianyu took out a black round plate the size of a bowl, and after casting several spells on it, the plate emitted a faint golden light. Holding the plate, he carefully pressed it against a small depression on the stone wall, resembling a spot worn by water erosion. Instantly, the stone wall emitted waves of black light. In an instant, a section of the heavy, solid stone wall magically vanished, revealing a doorway about a zhang wide. Inside the doorway was a large natural underground cave, filled with strange rocks but no water. The entrance seemed to be shielded by an invisible force, keeping the lake water out. In one corner of the cave, there was a half-moon-sized flat area that had been artificially excavated. The flat surface was densely covered with formation patterns, and at its center stood a half-person-tall square altar. Dried, blackened blood stains were clearly visible on the altar. The walls and surface of the altar were engraved with mysterious lightning patterns, dyed black by the bloodstains. These patterns seemed to contain the power of ghosts and gods, constantly exuding a strange and inexplicable pressure. Next to the flat area was a natural pit filled with scattered bones. The lower layer of bones had decayed into powder, indicating they had been there for a long time. The upper layer of bones was relatively fresh, with flesh not completely decomposed, occasionally emitting a foul stench. Even more bizarre, the bones in the pit were not just human. There were bones of various demonic beasts, some resembling snakes, some with 4 hooves, and some with wings. End of the chapter. Perks of joining my Patreon. Cindertail. Read RDC ahead. Currently up to daily updates of 2 chapters, mass releases 10 today, 2 other stories to read, more coming in future. Support my hard work and show some appreciation. If you are unable to join as a paid member, please join as a free member to show some love, and please leave some reviews. It only takes a few minutes. Chapter 152. Lei Tianyu stepped into the cave, arriving at the altar and placing Sun Ru on it. He then performed several more incantations on the circular disc, causing the cave entrance to revert to a stone wall, unnoticed by him. Before the entrance disappeared, a tiny bug slowly crawled into the cave. Arriving late, Song-won, who had just reached the lakeside, stared at the dark lake surface for a while before retreating to a dense thicket, concealing his aura and hiding there. Lei Tianyu untied the black cloth bag and released the unconscious Sun Ru. He quickly stripped her naked and left her lying on the cold altar. Perhaps due to the shock of the cold and hard altar, Sun Ru slowly regained consciousness, finding herself completely naked in a pitch-black, unfamiliar environment with a man cloaked in black standing beside her. At only 17 years old, a girl who had always been under her father's protection, she had never encountered such a situation. Sun Ru let out a terrified scream and tried to get up in a panic. Lei Tianyu cast a spell, and a powerful force restrained her. No matter how hard she struggled, she couldn't move, only able to twist and turn on the altar covered in dried blood. After a moment, Sun Ru realized her predicament and was overwhelmed with fear and despair. "Where's this? Who are you? Why have you kidnapped me? What do you want to do?" Her voice was filled with terror and anxiety as she shouted loudly. Lei Tianyu ignored her pleas and placed 9 mid-grade spirit stones into the 9 grooves around the altar's array. Next, he cut open his left wrist with his hand, and a large stream of blood flowed from it, dripping onto the array on the ground. Lei Tianyu walked slowly around the altar, letting the blood drip continuously from his wrist. After all the array patterns around the altar were stained red with blood, he stopped. At this point, due to excessive blood loss, Lei Tianyu's face turned extremely pale, but his eyes were filled with intense excitement. The array patterns on the ground began to glow, emitting a faint blood-colored light. The thunder patterns on the altar were also activated, slowly emitting a blood-colored radiance. In an instant, it seemed as if some indescribable divine power was awakened, a profound, unfathomable force, not belonging to the current cultivation world, descended into the cave. and a mysterious pressure appeared, weighing heavily on Sun Ru and Lei Tianyu. Lei Tianyu used spirit power to seal his wound, faced the altar, and sat cross-legged, pressing his hands firmly into two grooves on the altar's stone wall. Silver lightning flickered from his hands. The lightning initially only flowed over his hands but gradually spread to the entire altar. Countless small, bright lightning bolts jumped and moved across the altar. Sun Ru, lying on the altar and unable to move, was not harmed by the lightning, but she was filled with an inexplicable terror. She screamed and cried out, "Please let me go. Who are you? What are you trying to do?" Suddenly, she felt a powerful suction force coming from the altar beneath her, relentlessly pulling at her back. In the blink of an eye, all the flesh in contact with the altar was violently torn apart. "Ah, Father, where are you? Come save your daughter, it hurts, it really hurts." As Sun Ru's heart-wrenching cries echoed, her blood spread across the entire altar, then flowed down the stone walls of the altar. Sun Ru gradually felt her soul being torn apart, forcibly extracted from her body by the altar. Her consciousness became increasingly blurry, and she knew she was about to die, her soul about to be scattered, but she was filled with unwillingness and resentment. She couldn't understand why someone who had never done evil would suffer such a calamity. What exactly is that man in black scheming, and what is this altar? In the midst of unimaginable agony, Sun Ru felt her soul being torn into fragments, completely losing consciousness. Along with the soul, a certain inexplicable talent was also being pulled away as the blood flowed down. Lei Tianyu's hands pressed against the stone wall became gradually covered in fresh blood. The blood that flowed around seemed to be suddenly drawn by some force, gathering into several red blood snakes that surged towards Lei Tianyu's hands. The blood snakes crawled up his arms and onto his face, then like frightened snakes returning to their nest, they frantically wriggled into his mouth and nose as the blood snakes entered. Lei Tianyu's face suddenly contorted in pain. "Ah, ah, ah." Lei Tianyu raised his head and let out heart-wrenching, agonized howls with his mouth wide open. The blood snakes flowed into his body more swiftly soon. The cries turned into even more intense, hysterical howls of pain. After a quarter of an hour, Lei Tianyu curled up on the ground, panting heavily, drenched in sweat. His clothes soaked through, gradually recovering from the excruciating pain. Lei Tianyu slowly sat up and began to meditate. 2 hours later, Lei Tianyu opened his eyes with a thought. A surge of lightning appeared in the palm of his open right hand. Observing the lightning in his hand, now more powerful than ever, his bloodshot eyes reflected intense excitement from the recent agony. He clenched his right hand, causing the lightning to dissipate. Standing up, he casually discarded Sun Ru's shriveled corpse, which had lost most of its blood, into a pile of rubble. After cleaning up the remaining flesh on the altar, Lei Tianyu opened the cave entrance and left. Looking at the horizon, Lei Tianyu mounted his sword and flew off. Once he confirmed that there was no one within several miles. Songwen dove into the lake. Lei Tianyu emerged from the underwater cave, but the black-armored insect that had followed him was still in the cave. Using his connection with the insect, Songwen easily located the stone wall that led into the cave. Although it was daytime, the underwater cave remained pitch black. Songwen used his spiritual sense to scan for a while, and then took out a glowing stone to illuminate the stone wall, but he still couldn't distinguish any difference between the stone wall and ordinary underwater rocks. Whether through sight, spiritual sense, or direct touch, the stone wall felt like an ordinary stone wall. After searching the vicinity, Songwen concluded that without the circular disc Lei Tianyu had, it would be impossible to open the stone wall and enter the cave. Unable to find a way in from the outside, he had to place his hopes on the black-armored insect still inside the cave. Attempting to find an exit from within the underwater cave was naturally formed rather than man-made, and there was a possibility of other passages. Under Songwen's guidance, the black-armored insect searched various parts of the cave first. It explored the stone walls around the cave but found no exits. However, it discovered that the cave was very large, with the longest distance exceeding 10 miles. The cave was extremely irregular, resembling a gourd shape, composed of two somewhat irregular circular caverns with a clearly narrowed section in between. The altar was located in the larger of the two caverns. End of the chapter. Perks of joining my Patreon Cindertl, read RDC ahead. Currently up to daily updates of 2 chapters, mass releases 10 today, 2 other stories to read, more coming in future. Support my hard work and show some appreciation. If you are unable to join as a paid member, please join as a free memberdo. Show some love. And please leave some reviews. It only takes a few minutes. Chapter 153. Unable to find an opening in the surrounding rock walls, the black armored insect searched towards the top of the cave. Effort yields results. After nearly an hour, it finally found a small hole in a depression at the top of the smaller cavern in the gourd-shaped cave. The black armored insect crawled up the hole for more than 10 meters, and the hole gradually widened after climbing a few more meters. The hole became a vertical passage large enough for a person to pass through. The vertical passage was twisted and meandering as it ascended. After flying up nearly 100 meters, the black armored insect emerged into a cave. The cave was filled with stalactites and stalagmites, with cracks and crevices everywhere, and occasional drops of water fell from the ceiling. Song when emerged from the lake bottom, guided by his connection with the black armored insect, and headed towards the cave. This cave was located inside a small mountain. With the black armored insect's guidance, Song followed the vertical passage, leaping down. He descended the vertical passage for about 100 meters before it suddenly narrowed to the point where it was no longer passable. Song took out a mid-grade magical artifact flying sword, which he had purchased in the eastern Huafeng market for the purpose of remaining inconspicuous. Holding the flying sword, Song began to cut through the rock, placing the cut debris into a spare storage ring. This storage ring had originally belonged to Wu Run and was the largest storage ring. Song, when possessed with a capacity of 200 cubic meters, enough to hold all the excavated stones from the 20-meter vertical passage. After spending more than half an hour, he finally cleared the vertical passage and entered the underwater cave in the rugged cave. After walking for some distance, he finally saw the mysterious altar. Song circled around the altar and noticed that it, along with the array on the ground, exuded an ancient and mysterious aura that did not match the style of the current cultivation world. It was clear that Lei Tianyu had used this array to devour Sun Ru's thunder technique talent. Seeing an array capable of devouring others' talents for the first time, Song felt both amazed and horrified. If it can even plunder talents, then this array and altar are truly world-shaking. Since the thunder technique talent can be devoured, I wonder if the spiritual root can be devoured as well. If it could even devour spiritual root talents, it might create the legendary 9-rank spiritual roots. Song vaguely felt that this altar probably couldn't plunder others' spiritual root talents. Otherwise, Lei Tianyu could have directly transformed himself into a 9-rank spiritual root, significantly advancing his cultivation without needing to devour thunder technique talents to enhance its power. In the face of absolute cultivation power, even the most powerful techniques become insignificant. But according to AI Kuan, the mainstream theory in the cultivation world about cultivating thunder techniques is that fire attribute spiritual roots have undergone a mutation, acquiring thunder attribute spiritual roots. How can this array devour a person's thunder spiritual root? Could it be that the cultivation world's theories about thunder spiritual roots are wrong? After pondering for a while with no clear answers, Song decided to stop thinking about it. He turned his attention to the rubble-filled pit. Sun Ru's corpse still lay there, face up due to the immense pain she suffered before death. Her eyes were bulging wide open, staring unblinkingly. Beside her corpse was the skeleton of an unknown beast with 4 hooves, already decayed into a rotted skeleton. Seeing this beast's remains, an image of Ko Chang flying on a green ox flashed through Song Wen's mind. A smile crept across Song Wen's face as he murmured softly, "Interesting." Song Wen took another look around the cave. Apart from the altar and array, there was nothing else in the cave. He descended to the bottom of the vertical passage, then flew upwards towards the upper cave. While excavating the vertical passage, he had intentionally made it narrower at the bottom and wider at the top, so he could block it with stones. He took out suitable large stones from his storage ring and blocked up the vertical passage. After blocking about 10 meters, the large stones were used up, and the remaining small stones were no longer suitable for sealing the vertical passage. Song flew up to the cave and found a large boulder inside. He carried the boulder to the entrance of the vertical passage and used it to seal the entrance. After sealing the passage, Song left the cave and headed towards the eastern Huafeng district. On the way, he casually discarded the stones from his storage ring into some inconspicuous corners. By the time he returned to the district, it was already afternoon. Arriving at the gate of his small courtyard, Song glanced over at the neighboring Sun Daxiong's house. The gate was still tightly closed, and the yard was very quiet. Sun Daxiong had not yet returned from hunting magical beasts. Sun Ru's death had not yet been discovered. Song Wen pushed open his own courtyard gate and walked in. 2 days later, in the morning, Sun Daxiong, injured but in high spirits, appeared at his doorstep, clearly pleased with his recent hunting success. He pushed open the courtyard gate and, seeing no sign of his daughter, shouted out loudly, "Xiao Ru, I'm back. Come out. I managed to hunt a green wolf this time. The mid-grade flying sword you wanted last time, I've brought it back for you." After waiting for a moment, he noticed that his daughter did not come running out of the house with her usual excitement. Sun Daxiong's smile faded, and he murmured with some confusion, "Where could that girl have gone? Did she go out to the district for a stroll?" Talking to himself, Sun Daxiong stepped into the house. When he reached the door to Sun Ru's room, his expression changed drastically. The door to Sun Ru's room was wide open, and the room was empty. What truly frightened him was that the 6 armored array he had bought to protect his daughter was forcefully breached. The array plate was on the bed, the array flags were still there, and there were still spirit stones in the array's base, though their spiritual energy had not yet been depleted. But the array had stopped functioning. The array had been forcibly broken from the outside. A sense of foreboding immediately overwhelmed Sun Daxiong. He turned and ran anxiously out of the courtyard, shouting loudly as he ran, "Xiao Ru! Xiao Ru! Where are you?" Receiving no response, Sun Daxiong ran desperately out of the courtyard towards the district enforcement team's location. 2/4 of an hour later, a team of 7 late-stage Qi cultivators from the Beastmaster sect arrived outside Sun Daxiong's courtyard. After investigating the scene and questioning the neighbors, they found no useful information. There were no signs of Sun Ru leaving voluntarily, nor any residual traces of an intrusion. All the neighbors, including Song Wen, reported that they had not seen Sun Ru in the past 2 days and had not noticed any unusual activity, with no information to go on. The enforcement team concluded that Sun Ru was missing and left without further action. In the eastern Huafeng district, with many loose cultivators coming and going each year, the disappearance of one person like Sun Ru caused no significant stir. Only Sun Daxiong remained in a state of despair, kneeling in front of his courtyard. This tall and robust man, who had never uttered a sound even when severely injured by magical beasts, now appeared stunned and vacant. He stared blankly at the empty courtyard and house, slapping his face repeatedly. His face was swollen from the slaps, blood seeping from his mouth, yet he seemed oblivious to the pain. It was as if he was blaming himself for not taking better care of his daughter, feeling guilty towards his deceased wife, and perhaps also blaming himself for not returning earlier. Despite knowing that the district had been restless recently, with over 20 loose cultivators mysteriously disappearing in the past few months, he still went out to hunt magical beasts. End of the chapter. Perks of joining my Patreon Cinder TL. Read RDC ahead. Currently up to daily updates of 2 chapters, mass releases. 2 other stories to read, more coming in future. Support my hard work and show some appreciation. If you are unable to join as a paid member, please join as a free member to show some love, and please leave some reviews. It only takes a few minutes. Chapter 154. Song Wen left his small courtyard and closed the gate, glancing at Sun Daxiong, who was sitting and kneeling at the gate of the neighboring courtyard. The sudden disappearance of his daughter had completely devastated this man, who was usually spirited and full of energy, with a detached expression. Song Wen walked past Sun Daxiong and headed towards the district. 2/4 of an hour later, Song Wen, in disguise, entered a spirit beast shop. The shop not only sold spirit beasts and spirit insects but also provided the pills and spiritual herbs needed to care for them. Since arriving in eastern Huafeng district, Song Wen had visited several spirit beast shops and had bought beginner's manuals for raising spirit insects, but they had not been of much help in nurturing his own insects. Though spirit insects and goo insects differ by only one character in Chinese, their cultivation methods are worlds apart. Cultivating spirit insects is similar to raising spirit beasts, involving the signing of a soul contract to establish a spiritual connection between the cultivator and the creature. This creates a mutually beneficial and equal relationship. Cultivators usually focus on fostering emotional bonds with their spirit beasts and insects to enhance their synergy. Goo insects, however, are different. They are forcefully refined by cultivators, leading to spiritual enslavement, which is why goo insects sometimes rebel against their masters. The cultivation of goo insects is also more brutal. Goo masters often make the insects devour each other to produce stronger individuals. Songwon came to the Spirit Beast shop to buy Spirit Beast pills. Spirit Beast pills help enhance the bloodline of Spirit Beasts and increase their strength. He planned to use these pills to improve the bloodline of his black armored goo previously. Songwon had purchased 2 bottles of first-grade superior Spirit Beast pills. After using them on the strongest of his black armored goo for an extended period, the insect's aura had become somewhat stronger. But there were no signs of advancement yet. Having used up the previous pills, Songwon intended to buy 2 more bottles. Do you have any second-grade Spirit Beast pills for sale? Songwon asked a shop assistant. The effects of first-grade superior Spirit Beast pills were minimal, so Songwon wanted to go for something stronger. The assistant replied with a smile, "Sorry, senior, but second-grade and above Spirit Beast pills are only available from the Beastmaster sect. None of the shops in the district carry them." Songwon nodded, understanding that this was another way for large sects to suppress loose cultivators. "Then give me 2 bottles of first-grade superior Spirit Beast pills." After paying 100 spirit stones, Songwon received 2 bottles of Spirit Beast pills, totaling 20 pills. Exiting the shop, Songwon headed towards the vendor district to buy some spiritual herbs needed for refining blood chi pills. As he scanned the various stalls, looking for the herbs he needed, something caught his eye suddenly. His gaze sharpened. A short-statured vendor discreetly handed 3 jade bottles, each inscribed with sealing runes, to a scholarly-looking rogue cultivator. The vendor then received a bag of spirit stones from the cultivator and slipped the jade bottles into his waist pouch. The entire exchange happened in a flash, but Songwon caught it out of the corner of his eye. Songwon immediately recognized that the sealing runes on the jade bottles were meant to store blood essence. The 2 individuals had just exchanged blood essence, specifically human blood essence. If it were beast blood, such caution would not be necessary. Songwon detected no traces of demonic cultivator energy from either person, suggesting that the blood essence in the jade bottles was not refined by the vendor himself, and the buyer had not consumed it but was merely running an errand for someone else. After receiving the blood essence, the scholarly cultivator turned and left, brushing past Songwon and quickly disappearing around a corner. The vendor watched the scholarly cultivator vanish with a hint of greed in his eyes. This was not the first time the scholarly cultivator had bought blood essence from him, but it was the first time he had purchased 3 bottles at once, worth a total of over 100 spirit stones. The cultivator had paid without batting an eye, indicating he was quite wealthy. The vendor took out a communication jade slip and sent a message. In the evening, the dark clouds in the distant sky swallowed the last bit of twilight. As the sky grew darker, the short vendor began to pack up his stall, deciding it was best to leave the district early since it wasn't very safe after dark. Moreover, he often provided information to the rogue cultivators he worked with, so it was likely that they had already succeeded in their mission. He needed to go and collect his share of the spoils. He quickly packed up his stall and hurried out of the market. After leaving the market and traveling several miles along a forest path, he used the dim light to check his surroundings. Once he confirmed he was not being followed, he used a flight technique to soar into the air and speed towards the distance. A quarter of an hour later, the flight technique expired and he had traveled over 30 miles. The vendor did not continue flying but descended and moved through the increasingly dark forest. Suddenly, a figure cloaked entirely in black blocked his path. The vendor's face changed dramatically. Despite his caution, he had still been followed. Fixing his gaze on the dark figure ahead, he suppressed his panic and said in a deep voice, "Fellow cultivator, if you've stopped me, what is it that you need?" The shadowy figure spoke in a harsh, gravelly voice, "If you dare move your hand towards your waist pouch, I will sever it." Seeing his small movement detected, the vendor's face grew even uglier. He stopped his hand from moving towards his waist pouch and slowly raised both hands. "Fellow cultivator, please calm down. Whatever you need, just say so. I will certainly comply." Songwon asked, "Where did you obtain the human blood essence you have?" The vendor immediately replied, "I bought it in the ghost market." "Ghost market?" Songwon murmured. He had tracked the vendor because he recognized him as someone who frequented the gray areas and hoped to learn about the underground black market in eastern Huafeng district through him. Based on previous experiences in the corpse demon sex market, many items that could not be sold in the market were available in the black market. "Where's the ghost market?" Songwon asked coldly. It's 400 miles east of eastern Huafeng district in a mist-covered ravine. Are there any requirements to enter the ghost market? There are no special requirements, just pay 2 spirit stones to gain entry. Songwon nodded, slowly backing away until he was completely hidden in the darkness, disappearing from sight. Seeing that the figure had completely vanished, the vendor sighed in relief, his previously tense heart finally settling. The vendor had not sensed any energy fluctuations from the cloaked figure, indicating that the figure's strength far surpassed his own. Just as the vendor prepared to use his movement technique to leave, he felt a sharp pain at the back of his head. It was as if something had crushed his skull and pulverized his brain. His consciousness began to fade as his body fell straight down. In the darkness, a figure swiftly emerged, grabbing the vendor's shattered head. It was Songwon, who had returned, soul-searching technique. Songwon was fortunate. The incomplete memories obtained through the soul search provided some information about the ghost market. The vendor had not lied about the location and entry requirements of the ghost market. What the short vendor did not mention was that the ghost market was only open at night. Moreover, the mist surrounding the ghost market interfered with cultivators' spiritual and sensory detection, making it easy for those unfamiliar with the area to get lost in the fog. The vendor's memories also included details about colluding with rogue cultivators to rob customers. Since these details were irrelevant to Songwon, he did not examine them closely. After devouring the vendor's soul and blood and disposing of the body, Songwon applied a haste talisman and set off towards the ghost market. End of the chapter. Perks of joining my Patreon. TL. Read RDC ahead. Currently up to daily updates of 2 chapters, mass releases, 2 other stories to read more coming in future. Support my hard work and show some appreciation. If you are unable to join as a paid member, please join as a free memberdo. Show some love and please leave some reviews. It only takes a few minutes. Chapter 155. Half an hour later, Songwon arrived at the outskirts of the misty ghost market. He found himself at the entrance of a valley entirely shrouded in thick mist. The deeper he went into the valley, the denser the mist became, making it hard to see clearly, according to the vendor's memory. Following a small path in the valley for more than 10 miles would lead him to the entrance of the ghost market. Situated between 2 large mountains, Songwon extended his spiritual sense and found that it could only probe up to 1 mile. The mist indeed interfered with spiritual detection. Songwon did not rush into the valley, but instead released all his black armored goo. Fortunately, the mist did not greatly affect them. With their help, Songwon could detect everything within a radius of several miles, which eased his mind. He stepped onto the path and proceeded deeper into the valley. The path wound and twisted, stretching onward. As he ventured further into the valley, the mist grew denser, reducing visibility to only 2 or 3 meters. The range of his spiritual sense continued to shrink gradually. It could only probe up to a few meters, and even with the help of the black armored insects, the detection range was limited to a mile. Fortunately, nothing unusual happened along the way. Even when encountering cultivators dressed in peculiar attire, they mutually avoided conflict without any incidents. After a quarter of an hour, a ravine about 50 meters wide appeared within Songwon's perception. The walls of the ravine were high, the exact height unknown as it exceeded what Songwon could sense. At the ravine's entrance, 2 cultivators in black robes and ghostly masks stood guard. According to the short vendor's memory, these 2 were the guards of the ghost market. As Songwon approached the guards, he handed over 2 spirit stones. One of the guards took the stones and said in a gruff voice, "The ghost market closes at the hour of the ghost, so you must leave before then." Songwon nodded and entered the ravine. After walking another 10 meters into the ravine, the scene before him opened up. On either side of the ravine, about every 10 meters, there was a dark red lantern. The lanterns emitted a crimson glow that dispersed the thick mist on both sides of the ravine. Ancient houses extended into the distance. In the center was a wide street crowded with cultivators. The ancient houses were bathed in the crimson light, with lingering thin mist still present, combined with the various strange and frightening masks worn by the cultivators. The ghost market indeed resembled a place from the underworld. Songwon followed the street for over 20 meters and entered an inconspicuous narrow shop. The shop had no signboard, and there were no goods on display. Only a thin, middle-aged cultivator sat at the counter, playing with a black stone ball. As soon as he entered the shop, Songwon felt a spiritual scan. He became suddenly alert. The thin cultivator was surprisingly a mid-stage foundation establishment cultivator. The spiritual scan quickly passed and was soon withdrawn by the thin cultivator. Songwon was wary of him, and the cultivator harbored some suspicion towards Songwon, as his scan detected no spiritual fluctuations from him. This situation could mean one of three things. Either Songwon's cultivation was significantly higher, or he was using some secret technique or artifact to completely conceal his spiritual presence. Or he truly had no cultivation, given that someone could reach the Misty Ghost Market. It was unlikely they were an ordinary person with no cultivation. The thin cultivator leaned towards the possibility that Songwon was using some secret technique or artifact to conceal his presence. After all, to completely hide any spiritual fluctuations, one would need to be at least a golden core cultivator. Even a late-stage foundation establishment cultivator should still have detectable spiritual fluctuations. A golden core cultivator would not need to be so cautious about completely concealing their presence. The thin cultivator stood up and said to Songwon, "Fellow cultivator, welcome to my humble shop. How can I assist you? Do you have any Xian stones?" Songwon asked, his voice coming from beneath a bullhead mask. The vendor's human vital blood was purchased from this shop. Not knowing much about the ghost market, Songwon decided to start here and try his luck. Xianin stones. The thin cultivator's voice showed surprise. They were a type of third-grade spiritual material, and even more so, they were a inattributed spiritual material. Could this person really be a golden core cultivator? Even if he wasn't a golden core cultivator, he should at least be a late-stage foundation establishment cultivator. Otherwise, he wouldn't be inquiring about a third-grade spiritual material like the Xianin stone. Despite his astonishment, the thin cultivator maintained a calm expression and shook his head. "Fellow cultivator, I'm sorry, but I don't have any Xianin stones here. Pardon the intrusion." Without the item he needed, Songwon turned and walked toward the shop's exit without hesitation. Just as Songwon was about to step out the door, the thin cultivator suddenly spoke up. "Fellow cultivator, please wait." Songwon stopped, turned around, and asked with a hint of suspicion, "Fellow cultivator, what can I do for you? I know a place where Xianin stones can be found." Songwon's interest was piqued. "Oh? Are you offering information about the Xianin stones for sale?" The thin cultivator shook his head. "I do know where to find them, but I don't intend to sell the information." Songwon's demeanor suddenly grew cold, and a faint hint of murderous intent began to emanate before entering the ghost market. Songwon had completely concealed his cultivation aura to give the impression of being unfathomable. Since he was disguising himself as a master, he needed to project the aura of a master. "Fellow cultivator, are you toying with me?" Seeing the misunderstanding, the thin cultivator quickly clarified, "Please don't be hasty. Let me explain. The Xianin stones I mentioned belong to a foundation establishment family, and I hold a deep grudge against them. This family massacres cultivators and ordinary people, extracting their souls to refine sinister ghostly techniques. Unfortunately, my hometown was slaughtered by this family. My entire family was brutally murdered, their souls torn from their bodies, unable to rest in peace, eternally tormented. Their souls are likely trapped in some ghostly artifacts, turned into mindless wraiths, suffering endlessly." The thin cultivator's tone grew more agitated and furious. He continued, "My daily cultivation is solely for the purpose of seeking revenge. This family is so inhuman that their crimes are beyond measure. I have already contacted 13 cultivators with a blood feud against this family, and we will soon attack them. I am telling you all this to seek your assistance. Firstly, to eliminate this evil family and bring peace to the world. Secondly, you may also obtain the Xianin stones." Songwon listened silently, his expression unchanged. After a moment of contemplation, he finally spoke. "Your story is indeed tragic, but to ask me to risk my life to attack a foundation establishment family based solely on your words seems rather fanciful. Even if what you say is true, facing an unknown cultivation family, I'm afraid I lack the courage to confront them." While Songwon's words seemed like a refusal, he was actually testing the waters. He wanted to see if he could gather more detailed information about the cultivation family from the thin cultivator end of the chapter. Perks of joining my Patreon TL. Read RDC ahead. Currently up to daily updates of 2 chapters mass releases. 2 other stories to read more coming in future. Support my hard work and show some appreciation if you are unable to join as a paid member. please join as a free memberdo, show some love, and please leave some reviews. It only takes a few minutes. Chapter 156. The thin cultivator smiled slightly upon hearing Songwen's response. Fellow cultivator, there's no need to provoke me. I'm not going to easily reveal the name of that Foundation establishment family. If you're truly interested, you can come to the Ghost Market's eastern outskirts, 10 miles away from the Three Rivers confluence after the hour of Shin. We, the 13 cultivators, will gather there to discuss attacking the Foundation establishment family. At that time, I will share all the information about the Foundation establishment family with you. Songwen furrowed his brows and asked, fellow cultivator, can you tell me what level of cultivation the 13 cultivators have? The thin cultivator replied, I can disclose that, among us 13, there are 2 Foundation establishment cultivators, 3 early-stage Foundation establishment cultivators, and the remaining 8 are all at the 9th level of Qi refining. The family we plan to attack has 6 Foundation establishment cultivators and nearly 100 late-stage Qi refining cultivators. Songwen nodded and said, thank you for the information, I will consider it, farewell. After speaking, Songwen left without hesitation. Once outside the thin cultivator's shop, Songwen casually explored the entire ghost market. The ghost market wasn't very large, only about a few hundred meters in size. The front part was filled with shops, while the back part had stalls. Many of the spiritual items for sale here were considered forbidden in East Huafeng Market. Songwen felt as though he was in a small magical artifact market. Human blood, cultivator souls, ghostly and demonic. Qi, corpse qi, ghostly methods, corpse techniques, blood magic. All these items could be found in the ghost market. After spending a few months in East Huafeng Market, Songwen had gradually learned about the righteous sect's situations. In the righteous sect's territory, it was rare for cultivators to practice demonic techniques, as their bodies would be tainted by the world's filth, making their demonic nature obvious to others. However, many righteous cultivators secretly practiced some demonic techniques that were less likely to taint their aura or refined demonic artifacts. For instance, the Foundation establishment family mentioned by the thin cultivator secretly refined ghostly artifacts. As long as they didn't openly use these artifacts, their demonic practices wouldn't be easily detected. The righteous sects turned a blind eye to such secret practices. As long as these cultivators didn't blatantly commit acts that would anger the heavens or the common people generally, the righteous sects wouldn't actively seek to eliminate them. The ghost market clearly existed with the tacit approval of the Beastmaster sect and the Lei family, or even involved direct benefits for the 2 major powers. Otherwise, the ghost market would have been wiped out long ago by the Beastmaster sect and the Lei family after a round of exploration. Though there were many demonic items in the ghost market, Songwen didn't find what he urgently needed. The Tier 3 Spirit Beast Elixir he wanted wasn't available in the ghost market either. It seemed that the Beastmaster sect had very strict control over Tier 3 Spirit Beast Elixirs. In the future, at the Three Rivers confluence, 13 cultivators gathered there, with the thin cultivator among them. The number of Foundation establishment cultivators and Qi refining cultivators matched exactly what the thin cultivator had described. None of the 13 cultivators concealed their aura or appearance. They all showed their true selves, indicating that they trusted each other completely. Fellow cultivators, we all have deep enmity with the Li family. For the sake of revenge, we are all willing to risk our lives. After planning for so many years, everyone is now ready. Tonight at the hour of Z, it is the time for us to seek revenge and settle old scores. An older cultivator in the mid-stage of Foundation establishment, who was somewhat overweight, spoke. A female cultivator in the early stage of Foundation establishment stepped forward. What made her most striking was her face. She had a long scar running from her left forehead to her right jaw, resembling a long centipede crawling across her face. Her left eye was also lost due to the scar. It had sunk inward, making her appearance quite terrifying. The female cultivator's face was filled with hatred, as if it were suppressing a raging inferno. Finally, the day has come. I, Nie Qian, and the Tianhe family will not rest until one side is annihilated. My family of 32 people and this scar on my face are all the work of the Li family. Over the years, I have never repaired this scar, as a constant reminder of my deep hatred with the Li family. As she spoke, the scar on her face twitched and moved as if it were alive, writhing like a centipede. Under Nie Qian's influence, most of the cultivators had eyes filled with overwhelming hatred, united in their common cause. Only the thin cultivator was looking around as if searching for someone. Wang Yi, what's the matter? The mid-stage Foundation establishment elder noticed the thin cultivator's actions and asked. Wang Yi, somewhat disappointed at not finding the expected figure, replied, "Elderly, a few days ago. A mysterious cultivator with undetectable cultivation came to my shop. He was looking for Xian Yin stones and I wanted to recruit him to join us in attacking the Li family. I invited him to come here today, but his presence is missing. I suspect he might be a late-stage Foundation establishment cultivator. It's a pity. If he had come, it would have been more assured to deal with the old bastard Li Jiangu." Elder Li's heart sank with a sense of alert. He spoke sternly, "Wang Yi, you didn't reveal our plan to attack the Li family to that mysterious cultivator, did you? If he is in league with the Li family and reveals our plan to them, all our years of planning will be in vain." Wang Yi replied, "Elder Li, rest assured, I wouldn't be so foolish. I didn't disclose the name of the Li family or our action plan to him. He knows nothing." Elder Li sighed in relief and said, "That's good. However, if what you said is true and a late-stage Foundation establishment cultivator joins us, it would indeed increase our chances of success." "Ah, it's my own fault. I'm stuck at the mid-stage of Foundation establishment and have been for decades. Seeing my lifespan dwindling, I still can't break through. Otherwise, my plan could have been postponed for a few more years to accumulate even stronger forces." Wang Yi said, "Elder Li, don't be too hard on yourself. If it weren't for the countless hours and effort you've put into gathering us, we might never have had the chance to seek revenge." Wang Yi then continued to ask, "Elder Li, based on your understanding, is it true that the old bastard Li Jiangu has obtained several Xian Yin stones?" Elder Li replied, "It's mostly true. The old bastard Li Jiangu is only at the mid-stage of Foundation establishment, but he has 2 ghost generals comparable to late-stage Foundation establishment without Xian Yin stones. It would be difficult for him to refine such ghostly creatures." 10 miles away, in a small cave, Songwon, who had been observing everything through the black-armored insects, felt a bit surprised. It seemed that the thin cultivator, Wang Yi, was indeed telling the truth about what he had said. The Tianhe Li family was about 3,000 miles away from here, located on the famous Tianhe River in the Tianyuan continent, and had become wealthy by raising Qingjia spirit fish. According to what Songwen knew, there were indeed rumors that the Tianhe Li family was involved in refining ghostly artifacts. End of the chapter. Perks of joining my Patreon Pa Cinder TL. Read RDC ahead, currently up to daily updates of 2 chapters, mass releases, 2 other stories to read, more coming in future. Support my hard work and show some appreciation. If you are unable to join as a paid member, please join as a free memberdo. Show some love and please leave some reviews. It only takes a few minutes. Chapter 157. On this night, at the hour of Z, the Tianhe River surged with mighty force, roaring like thunder and churning waves. On a certain concave bank of the Tianhe, there was a large complex of buildings built against the mountains, with several courtyards arranged in an orderly manner. Between the courtyards were dozens of artificial lakes where large fish with iron-like scales, known as Qingjia spirit fish, could be vaguely seen swimming back and forth. This was the residence of the Tianhe Li family. The Qingjia spirit fish were famous in the cultivation world for their ability to enhance cultivation and strengthen the body when consumed. At the outermost artificial lake, 2 mortal warrior servants, each carrying a dim lantern and a large wooden barrel, struggled to walk to the edge of the lake. The barrels were filled with fresh blood and meat. The 2 mortal warriors picked up pieces of meat the size of a human head and threw them into the lake. Immediately, the blood seeped out, turning a portion of the lake water a faint red. A green fish, over 2 meters long, suddenly leapt from the bottom of the water, creating a large splash, and swallowed the meat chunk in one bite, tearing at it with its finely serrated teeth. As more pieces of meat were thrown into the water, Qingjia spirit fish continuously leaped from below, competing fiercely for the meat. Suddenly, one of the servants' heads exploded and his body fell toward the lake surface. The other servant, splattered with blood, had a sudden thought: an enemy attack. But aren't there cultivators from the Li family stationed outside? Who could have infiltrated this place silently? Before he could call for help, he suddenly felt a sharp pain in his chest. Looking down, he saw a gaping blood hole the size of a bowl. His body fell into the lake as well. The 2 fresh human corpses fell into the lake, and the Qingjia spirit fish went into a frenzy. The fish swarmed around the corpses, tearing them apart and creating tumultuous waves. More than a dozen figures flashed by the lake's edge, heading towards the depths of the Li family's estate. These 13 cultivators, seeking revenge, were ruthless in their actions. Wherever they went, no matter whether they were mortals or cultivators, and regardless of whether they were members of the Li family or not, no one survived. They slaughtered their way toward the core of the Li family's residence. swiftly raiding several miles and killing over 1,000 people. Finally, a Li family cultivator, on the brink of death, managed to send out a warning. A fireball struck the building, causing a massive explosion and a fire that quickly illuminated the dark, silent night, attracting the attention of the Li family members. The Li family was immediately thrown into chaos, with fleeing servants, panicking commoners, and dying low-level cultivators scrambling everywhere. Enemy attack! Enemy attack! The terrified screams and the chaotic crowd filled Elder Li and the others with a sense of vengeful satisfaction. In the past, when their family and fellow villagers were slaughtered by the Li family, they had been just as terrified and panicked. No mercy, no compassion. Everywhere they went became a battlefield, and everyone they saw was an enemy. Today, they would eradicate the Li family to root out their deep-seated hatred. Suddenly, a stern voice came from afar. Who dares to be so insolent in my Li family? A figure flew in on a sword from a distance. As a foundation establishment powerhouse of the Li family appeared, the Li family cultivators seemed to regain their morale and began gathering from all directions. A great battle was about to erupt. Among the 13 vengeful cultivators, those in the foundation establishment stage were the main force, each wielding a spirit weapon, ready to slaughter their way through. The 8 cultivators at the 9th level of Qi refinement moved around the periphery of the battlefield, easing the pressure on the 5 foundation establishment cultivators. As the number of Li family cultivators increased, the battle soon reached a stalemate. Suddenly, a gaunt old man with a ghostly aura appeared. The old man resembled a desiccated corpse, as if only a layer of skin and flesh were wrapped around his bones. Any experienced cultivator would immediately recognize that the old man was afflicted with excessive ghostly energy which he had failed to properly refine. The ghostly energy had corroded his flesh, turning it into something akin to decaying meat. If a solution wasn't found quickly, the old man would not have much time left to live. This old man was none other than Li Jiangu, the greatest enemy of Elder Li and the others. Li Jiangu's hollow eyes, like those of a skeleton, stared coldly as he spoke, a bunch of vermin trying to cling to life. Thinking that by joining forces, you can shake the Li family? After speaking, Li Jiangu ordered the younger Li family members beside him. Step aside and deal with those Qi refinement nuisances. Surround these 5 and prevent their escape. Tonight, I will personally root out these pests. Yes, ancestor. The 5 foundation establishment cultivators of the Li family disengaged from the battle, leaving the battlefield to Li Jiangu as they went to deal with the Qi refinement cultivators. At this moment, only 7 Qi refinement cultivators seeking revenge remained, most of them injured. They were no match for the 5 foundation establishment cultivators of the Li family, and within a few breaths they were all slaughtered, while the Li family cultivators were chasing down the 7 remaining enemies. Li Jiangu and Wang Yi's group had already clashed. Li Jiangu tapped the 2 ghost-raising bags at his waist, and 2 ghostly beings appeared in the air. One had a green face and sharp fangs, while the other had a red face with disheveled hair. These 2 ghosts were high-level ghost generals, comparable in strength to foundation establishment cultivators. As soon as the 2 ghost generals appeared, a chilling wind swept across the Li family's estate. Elder Li and his companions were not surprised but rather pleased. Elder Li shouted, "Everyone, after years of planning, success or failure hinges on this moment. If we do not kill that old scoundrel Li Jiangu, we swear we will not be human. Formation activate." The other 4 cultivators immediately sat cross-legged, surrounding Elder Li in the center. Each of them produced an array plate from their hands, which glowed with a bright green light. Suddenly, 9 array flags around them lit up with a greenish glow, unbeknownst to Li Jiangu. The 8 Qi refinement cultivators patrolling the perimeter had been secretly placing the 9 array flags. Li Jiangu had unwittingly fallen into the trap carefully set by Wang Yi and his group, becoming trapped in the formation alone. Elder Li also held an array plate, though his was slightly larger than those of the other 4. 5 elements rotating formation activate. A formation barrier glowing with 5 colors rose abruptly, enveloping an area of several miles and trapping Li Jiangu and the 2 ghost generals within it. Holding the array plate, Elder Li shouted loudly, "Gung metal!" The 5 cultivators responded by casting their spells onto their respective array plates. Instantly, streams of sharp gung metal energy surged within the formation. The gung metal energy quickly coalesced into numerous sharp, transparent blades. These blades, like a torrent of razor-sharp streams, surged towards the 2 high-level ghost generals. Li Jiangu's expression tightened as he was suddenly trapped within the 5 elements rotating formation. which was somewhat unexpected, however. His ghost generals were not to be underestimated. The two ghost generals emitted large amounts of ghostly energy, which quickly formed into substantial black armor, covering their entire bodies. End of the chapter. Perks of joining my Patreon com Cindertl. Read RDC ahead. Currently up to daily updates of 2 chapters mass releases. 2 other stories to read, more coming in future. Support my hard work and show some appreciation if you are unable to join as a paid member. Please join. As a free memberdo, show some love. And please leave some reviews. It only takes a few minutes. Chapter 158. At this moment, the torrent of gunmetal blades was unleashed. The blades rushed forth like a surging river, continuously pounding against the 2 ghost generals. The numerous small blades relentlessly struck the black armor, creating massive impacts that caused the 2 ghosts to continually retreat. Unable to approach Elder Lee and the others, the black armor made of ghostly energy began to disintegrate under the torrent's assault. Seeing the effects, Elder Lee's eyes lit up with surprise, and he shouted, "Ding, fire!" Before the gunmetal blades had completely dissipated, a fire dragon several dozen meters long slowly took shape. The fire dragon roared and breathed fire. Its might impressive. Li Jiangu's eyes flickered with a hint of panic. Ding fire was a form of celestial yang fire with a touch of solar power. This type of pure yang power was second only to lightning in its ability to harm ghosts. Li Jiangu panicked. And the Li family cultivators outside the formation also fell into chaos. As soon as the formation barrier was erected, many Li family cultivators launched a full-scale attack on the barrier, trying to break it and rescue their ancestor. However, even with the 5 foundation establishment cultivators and 100 Qi refinement cultivators at the late stage, they could not forcibly break through the formation. Stop attacking. A female Li family cultivator suddenly shouted, "This formation is the 5 elements rotating formation. It has the power to convert the energies of the 5 elements. If attacks of mixed elemental energies hit the formation, they will be absorbed and countered by the formation. To forcibly break the formation, you must use attacks of a single element. Once the formation absorbs an excess of a single element's energy, it will disrupt the balance of the 5 elements, causing the formation to collapse." Hearing this, the Li family cultivators stopped attacking and looked at the female cultivator, clearly waiting for her instructions on which elemental energy to use. The female cultivator shouted, "Our Li family is founded on water-based techniques. Use water-based spells to attack the formation barrier." Upon her command, the cultivators began casting water-based spells and invoking water-type techniques. Water columns fell from the sky, roaring water dragons, ice crystal arrows, freezing cold winds. Various water-based techniques gradually formed and surged towards the formation barrier. Countless attacks struck the formation barrier, causing continuous deafening roars. The formation barrier flickered violently as if it were on the verge of shattering. Elderly, who was controlling the fire dragon, suddenly staggered as if struck heavily. He felt a sharp pain in his chest and spurted blood, staining his front with red. "Elderly!" Wang Yi exclaimed, his eyes filled with concern. Elderly's gaze remained sharp, his eyes fixed on the 2 ghost generals as he controlled the fire dragon in the air, roaring and charging forward. "I'm fine, focus on maintaining the formation." 2 miles away, Songwen, who was focusing on devouring the bodies found by the black beetles, saw the scene and noticed the Li family cultivators attacking the formation. His eyes flickered with killing intent. "I can't let you ruin my plans. I'm counting on Wang Yi and the others to deal with Li Jiangu while I take the opportunity to grab the Xian Yin stones." The 7 black beetles scattered in various locations suddenly flew towards the Li family cultivators on the edge of the battlefield. The female foundation establishment cultivator attacking the formation barrier suddenly noticed several of her subordinates collapse without warning from a distance. Before she could react, more of her subordinates fell. Scanning with her spiritual sense, she discovered several tiny bugs as small as grains of rice. The female cultivator quickly shouted, "Everyone be careful. The enemy has hidden traps with tiny bugs as small as grains of rice controlling the attack." Upon hearing the warning, the Li family cultivators immediately became alert, expanding their spiritual senses to guard against the bugs. As they were distracted, their spellcasting slowed down and their attacks weakened, reducing the pressure on the rotating formation. Seeing that only a few people had been killed by the black beetles before being discovered, Songwon, somewhat disappointed, recalled the beetles. The black beetles were only at the Qi refinement stage and could be easily killed if they got close to Foundation establishment cultivators. Within the formation, the fire dragon descended before the two ghost generals, opening its massive jaws to bite the green-faced ghost general and whipping its tail towards the red-haired ghost general. The two high-level ghost generals, comparable to Foundation establishment late-stage cultivators, seemed tiny before the giant fire dragon, yet they fought back fiercely. Although it appeared to be a stalemate, the solar energy from the fire dragon was rapidly depleting the ghost's ghostly energy. After about 30 breaths, the solar energy was exhausted, and the fire dragon dwindled to mere sparks, dissipating. Seeing this, Li Jiangu sighed with relief, knowing that if the fire dragon had lasted longer, the two ghost generals might have been gradually worn down. Even with just 30 breaths, the two ghost generals had suffered severe depletion of their ghostly energy, and their ghostly armor had nearly vanished. Before Li Jiangu could enjoy his respite, another fire dragon slowly took shape. Li Jiangu's heart sank, and he quickly shouted towards the formation's outer edge, "Hurry up and break the formation. I can't hold out much longer." A dragon's roar echoed through the heavens and the earth. The fire dragon attacked again. Li Jiangu, unable to withstand the fire dragon with his mortal body, could only order the two ghost generals to block the fire dragon once more. The severely weakened ghost generals were encircled by the fire dragon's massive form, suffering as if trapped in a fiery hell. Their ghostly energy rapidly diminished, and their ethereal forms began to become transparent. Seeing this, Li Jiangu's face turned frantic. If the fire dragon continued, the two ghost generals would be obliterated, their souls scattered. He waved his hand, and the two ghost generals transformed into two gusts of wind, drilling into the ghost rearing bags at his waist. Without the ghost generals blocking them, the fire dragon roared towards Li Jiangu. A fist-sized transparent water droplet suddenly appeared in front of Li Jiangu. This droplet, extracted from countless rivers and lakes, was a rare water elemental spirit treasure known as Kuei-in heavy water. The water droplet formed a thin water curtain, creating a water shield in front of him. Boom! The fire dragon crashed into the water curtain, spewing intense flames and scorching heat. It was as if half the formation was swallowed by a sea of fire. However, the thin water curtain formed by Kuei-in heavy water blocked the raging flames. Despite this, the powerful impact of the fire dragon pushed Li Jiangu rapidly towards the formation barrier. Bang! Li Jiangu collided heavily with the formation barrier, spewing a mouthful of blood and sustaining significant internal injuries. Outside the formation, the Li family cultivators grew increasingly anxious, using all their strength to cast water-based spells to attack the formation barrier. Suddenly, the flowing azure light on the formation barrier dimmed abruptly. The brilliant, multicolored barrier instantly turned grayish-brown, like bubbles bursting on sharp objects. The formation barrier suddenly exploded into countless sparks, dissipating into the void. End of the chapter. Perks of joining my Patreon. Com/CinderTL. Read RDC ahead. Currently up to daily updates of 2 chapters, mass releases, 2 other stories to read, more coming in future. Support my hard work and show some appreciation. If you are unable to join as a paid member, please join as a free memberdo. Show some love and please leave some reviews. It only takes a few minutes. Chapter 159. As the formation was breached, Elderly spurted a mouthful of blood onto the formation disc, and his aura rapidly waned. Wang Yi exclaimed, "Elderly," and was about to move forward to help. Elderly urgently stopped him, saying, "Don't worry about me. Go after Li Jiangu. His 2 ghost generals are incapacitated and he's injured. This is the best time to kill him. If we miss this chance, we may never have another opportunity for revenge." Wang Yi nodded slightly and pursued Li Jiangu. However, Nie Qian, whose face was twisted in a hideous sneer, did not hesitate for a moment and immediately chased after Li Jiangu as soon as the formation was breached. Li Jiangu had initially thought he would be trapped within the formation, but unexpectedly, the formation was suddenly broken. Overjoyed, he took to the air and flew towards the nearest Foundation establishment cultivator of his clan. "Stop them!" Li Jiangu commanded the Li family Foundation establishment cultivators, while he continued to fly towards the depths of the Li family's base, where a 1,000-meter-high mountain stood. He moved swiftly, crossing several miles in the blink of an eye and reaching the foot of the mountain. He glanced back and saw that Elder Li and the 5 others were all being intercepted by Li family cultivators. Elder Li, heavily injured, and the 4 Foundation establishment cultivators, including Wang Yi, found themselves struggling against 5 early-stage Foundation establishment cultivators and several late-stage Qi refinement cultivators from the Li family. Hatred flickered in Li Jiangu's eyes. "Because of you, I am gravely injured, and my 2 ghost generals are severely weakened. Once the ghost generals absorb the Een soul energy and recover, I will make sure to tear you to pieces, refine your souls, and use you as tools of vengeance. He flew into a cave at the mountain's base, which was pitch dark and gave off a terrifying, eerie feeling. After delving about 10 meters in, a vast underground hall appeared before him. On the left side of the hall was a dissecting table that Song-won was very familiar with. Next to the dissecting table was a blood pool, which was only a thin layer of blood remaining. Beside the dissecting table were thousands of human skeletons, piled up like a small mountain. On the right side of the hall, the floor was engraved with a ghostly soul refining formation. 8 ghost flags, 10 feet high, were inserted into the formation's array points. Within the formation, ghostly energy was dense, and numerous Een souls constantly swirled around, occasionally merging into the ghost flags, disappearing from sight, and then emerging from them, drifting within the formation. This underground hall was evidently a place where corpse refining, blood refining, and ghost soul refining were integrated. Li Jiangu approached the soul refining formation, summoned the 2 ghost generals, and took out a formation disc. After inputting several magic formulas, the weakened ghost generals rushed into the soul refining formation like hungry wolves into a sheep pen, voraciously devouring the Een souls within the Een souls, with their last remnants of animal instincts, tried to escape in a desperate attempt to survive. But how could they escape the constraints of the soul refining formation? Amidst their mournful howls, they were quickly consumed by the ghost generals, providing pure ghostly energy. Suddenly, a cold flash swept past the cave entrance, swiftly attacking Li Jiangu. The sudden killing intent left Li Jiangu no time to think. Instinctively, he summoned the Kuei in heavy water, forming a shield to block the attack. Puff! The cold moon blade struck the Kuei in water shield, as if piercing through the hide of a tough beast. A noticeable dent appeared on the shield, but it wasn't pierced through by the attack. Not deterred, the cold moon blade turned in midair and reoriented, aiming for Li Jiangu's head from above. The Kuei in water shield quickly repositioned to block the cold moon blade again. In just a few breaths, the two had exchanged dozens of blows. During the battle between the cold moon blade and the Kuei in water shield, a figure rushed into the underground hall. It was Song-won, who had secretly followed Li Jiangu. Song-won, wearing a bronze helmet, moved swiftly and closed in on Li Jiangu. At this moment, it was Li Jiangu's time of weakness, and it was the perfect chance to strike. There was no time for him to catch his breath. Song-won's hands, like eagle talons, clawed towards Li Jiangu with incredible speed, aiming for a fatal strike. The cold light from the claws radiated with a sinister black glow and the sharpness of metal, ghostly claw. Li Jiangu's face filled with terror, faced with the dual assault of the cold moon blade and Song-won. The Kuei in water shield could only block one attack. In a life-or-death situation, Li Jiangu quickly made a decision. The Kuei in water shield moved to cover his back, blocking the cold moon blade. A massive amount of ghostly energy surged from his hands, forming solid black gloves to protect his hands and block Song-won's attack. Bang! In his haste, Li Jiangu's ghostly energy gloves, though solid, could not withstand the full force of Song-won's ghostly claw, which had been refined with countless spiritual materials. His hands were instantly shredded, leaving him armless. The powerful impact sent his body flying backward. Before he could land, a cold flash struck from above, piercing through his abdomen and turning his flesh into a mess from within. His lifeless body fell to the ground, devoid of any breath, although it seems long-winded. From the moment Li Jiangu entered the underground hall to Song-won's killing him, only a few tens of breaths had passed. Song-won grabbed the shattered head of Li Jiangu with one hand. Soul search. Song-won staggered suddenly, his eyes filled with disbelief. The soul search had failed. Li Jiangu was a mid-foundation establishment cultivator, and Song-won's spiritual sense was comparable to a late foundation establishment cultivator. The strength of his soul was far superior to Li Jiangu's, so the soul search had a high chance of success. However, he had unfortunately encountered a rare failure. Unable to perform the soul search, Song-won decisively devoured his soul and essence blood. However, Li Jiangu, already in a weakened state, had very little essence blood to offer. With Li Jiangu's hands destroyed and his body having been weakened by prolonged exposure to ghostly energy, there was little value in refining him into a corpse puppet. Songwon simply incinerated the remains with a fireball holding Li Jiangu's storage ring. Songwon's spiritual sense entered it and quickly found a box made of yin wood which contained 2 Xian yin stones with the Xian yin stones in hand. Songwen's mood lifted greatly as he casually put the storage ring into his pocket. With a thought, a black coffin appeared on the ground. Roar. A second-tier corpse puppet leapt out of the coffin and rushed towards the cave entrance, after which it stood like a statue at the entrance, remaining motionless. 7 more of the black armor insects flew to the perimeter of the cave entrance to prevent any sudden approaches by other cultivators. Songwon took a few steps to the blood pool, jumped in, and began to devour the essence blood. The blood in the pool was not plentiful, only enough to submerge up to Songwen's ankles. A large amount of blood energy surged into Songwen's body, quickly converting into essence blood. The quality of the blood was not very high, mostly from ordinary humans. This was the first time Songwen had consumed such a large amount of blood at once. The excess essence blood made him feel like his body was about to burst. However, after reaching the foundation establishment stage, his body had become much stronger and could accommodate more essence blood, allowing him to barely consume all the blood in the pool. In the end, only a thin layer of light red liquid remained in the blood pool, just a small fraction of the original amount. Songwen leaped out of the pool, estimating that it took him less than half a stick of incense, about 2 minutes, to consume the blood. Outside, the sounds of battle continued to roar incessantly, and no one had come towards this area yet. Songwen turned his attention back to the 8 ghost flags. End of the chapter. Perks of joining my Patreon. Trian, Com Cinder TL, read RDC ahead, currently up to daily updates of 2 chapters, mass releases 5 on October 9th, 24, 2 other stories to read, more coming in future. Support my hard work and show some appreciation. Join as a paid member for as low as 1 to show some love, and please leave some reviews. It only takes a few minutes. Chapter 160. Seeing the 8 ghost banners, Songwen recalled the method for refining the Yin Soul banner that he had obtained from the ghost patroller in the Withered Blood Secret Realm. TL. Yin Soul banner. Mentioned in the Yin Soul banner is a versatile magical artifact that combines battle, defense, and evasion. It can be continuously refined with ghostly energy and spiritual materials to enhance its power. In fact, some powerful cultivators refine it into their lifebound magical treasure. The 8 ghost banners before him contained a large amount of Yin Souls and had long been corrupted by ghostly energy, making them excellent materials for refining Yin Soul banners. Songwen observed the 2 ghost generals in the soul refining array, still devouring Yin Souls, and found himself in a difficult situation. He couldn't figure out how to collect the ghost banners and the 2 ghost generals, as he had never practiced ghostly techniques and was not proficient in controlling ghosts. His earlier attempt at soul-searching Li Jiangu was meant to probe the method for collecting the banners and controlling ghosts, but it had failed. Songwen took out Li Jiangu's storage ring and quickly searched it with his spiritual sense. After a few breaths, he found an array plate and a jade slip in his hand. The array plate was for the soul refining array, and the jade slip recorded the operation method of the array. Placing the jade slip against his forehead, Songwen skimmed through its contents rapidly, finding the method to collect the array. After half a stick of incense, about 2 minutes, Songwen put away the jade slip. Time was of the essence, and Songwen had no time to fully refine the array plate. He needed to leave his spiritual sense and spiritual energy on the array plate to be able to collect the array. With Li Jiangu dead, the spiritual sense imprinted on the 2 ghost generals had dissipated automatically. The array plate had become an unowned item. Songwen's spiritual sense easily invaded the array plate. He performed several techniques on the array plate. The array plate began to emit a grim green light. The soul refining array also started to operate, and the Yin Souls drifting in the array were drawn into the ghost banners. Only the 2 ghost generals remained in the array, still roaring with Li Jiangu's death. The spiritual imprint he had left on the 2 ghost generals dissipated, and the 2 ghost generals, having long been enslaved, were unwilling to be controlled again. They continued to slam against the array, trying to escape. Songwen was determined not to let them go. He continuously performed techniques. The green light on the array plate intensified, and the power of the soul refining array grew stronger. In the end, the 2 severely weakened ghost generals could not resist the might of the array and were forcibly collected into the ghost banners. Seeing this, Songwen's expression brightened. He flew up, collected the 8 ghost banners into his storage ring, and then rushed out of the cave, taking the corpse puppet with him as he left. Outside the cave, Song Wen found that the battle was still ongoing. Wang Yi and others, having prepared for years for revenge, had managed to slaughter most of the Li family members. The Li family now had only 2 early Foundation establishment cultivators and over 10 Qi refining stage members left, struggling to hold on. They still hoped that Li Jiangu could quickly restore the strength of the 2 ghost generals and return to rescue them. Wang Yi and his group had also paid a heavy price. Except for Wang Yi and Ye Qian, the other 3 members had all been killed in battle. The objective of this mission had been achieved, and Song Wen did not intend to get involved in the ongoing battle. He was about to withdraw from the rear of the mountain suddenly. He saw 2 corpses of Li family Foundation establishment cultivators not far from the battlefield. They seemed to have died recently, and their souls had not yet dissipated. Song Wen immediately changed his mind and flew towards the 2 corpses. When he fled from the corpse demon sect, he had lost 4 substitute puppets to Wu Run and Yen Yuan and lacked cultivator souls to devour, so he had not replenished his soul reserve. Song Wen flashed past the edge of the battlefield, grabbing 2 corpses in each hand. After devouring the souls of the 2 corpses, he conveniently stored their bodies in his storage ring. His appearance drew the attention of both sides in the battle. The ghostly aura emanating from him made it clear that he was not an orthodox cultivator. Ye Qian, wary, continued attacking the Li family cultivators while shouting, "Who are you?" Wang Yi also noticed Song Wen. Seeing him shrouded in a black cloak reminded him of the mysterious cultivator who had inquired about the Xianyin stones in his store that day. He quickly told Ye Qian, "Don't provoke this person. He shouldn't be our enemy." The Li family cultivators grew increasingly panicked. They could clearly see that Song Wen had come from the direction of Li Jiangu's secluded cave, which made them uneasy. Li Jiangu might have been killed by this person. Seeing that neither side seemed inclined to engage him, Song Wen continued to collect a few more corpses whose souls had not yet dissipated. He then proceeded forward, heading directly towards the Tianhe River. This place was no longer safe. The battle had been raging for more than a quarter of an hour, with intense spiritual fluctuations and noise, which could easily attract other cultivators. It was wise to leave as soon as possible. Splash! Song Wen jumped into the Tianhe River, concealing his presence and letting the surging waters carry him downstream. After 2 hours, Song Wen emerged from the river, took out his flying boat, and soared into the sky. Another half-day later, Song Wen landed on a small mountain more than 3,000 miles away. The area was devoid of spiritual energy, and cultivators generally did not come here. He planned to use this place to refine Wu Ren's corpse into a corpse puppet. The concealment array was still in the workshop, and Song Wen did not bring it with him this time. However, he found a set of formations called the 9 Palaces in Array in Li Jiangu's storage ring. This was a genuine 3rd-grade formation that had the effect of concealing and hiding the impurities of the heavens and earth. The Li family's base deep in the mountains used this array to keep their killings and soul-refining activities hidden from outsiders. From a training manual in Li Jiangu's storage ring, Song Wen had a general understanding of this person's background. The Li family was originally a weak cultivation family with only Qi refining cultivators. Li Jiangu, with exceptional talent and strong family support, eventually achieved Foundation establishment. After entering the Foundation establishment stage, Li Jiangu's progress slowed significantly due to the limited resources provided by the family. Unsatisfied with being stuck at the Foundation establishment stage, Li Jiangu turned to the path of demonic cultivation. Only with powerful strength could he plunder more cultivation resources. In the orthodox realm, obtaining complete demonic cultivation methods was not easy. Li Jiangu scraped together various demonic cultivation methods, including corpse, ghost, and blood techniques. With these techniques, he naturally needed to collect cultivation materials. Starting with essence, blood, and souls, he began to raid remote areas, slaughtering ordinary people and intercepting solitary rogue cultivators. After refining powerful ghost generals, he also created vengeful ghosts for his family, enhancing the overall strength of the Li family. With nearly 30 years of accumulation, the Li family's strength surged, and the resources they plundered increased, leading to more talented family members achieving Foundation establishment. It was uncertain whether the ghostly cultivation methods Li Jiangu used were flawed or incomplete, but long-term cultivation in the ghostly path led to excessive ghostly energy entering his body, causing his flesh to gradually wither and appear as if he were an old corpse. Thus, He began to refine corpse techniques, attempting to devour others' essence blood to replenish his lost vitality. The corpse dissection platform and blood pool in the cave were used to provide essence blood for him. End of the chapter. Perks of joining my Triampa Triancom Cinder TL. Read RDC ahead. Currently up to daily updates of 2 chapters mess. Releases 5 on October 9th, 24 2 other stories to read more coming in future. Support my hard work and show some appreciation. Join as a paid member for as low as $1 to show some love, and please leave some reviews. It only takes a few minutes.